Hello and welcome to the Quest on Rajya Sabha TV. I'm Rakhee Bakshee. This show gives you a deep insight into the life, career and vision of a leading personality. And each week we have been bringing a new personality for you. This time, this personality this week is the additional Solicitor General of India, Miss Indira Jaising. Welcome to the show, ma'am. We are talking about this whole issue of women in general, but in particular the case of intern which you've taken up, and we actually congratulate you some way for the courage that you've shown in making the affidavit of the intern public. And how would you look at the way one individual, in this case Justice Ganguly, is behaving?
For me, it goes to the heart of the issue of judicial accountability. I think as a nation, as a people, as a woman, as an additional Solicitor General, I have a right to expect that judges who sit in judgment over others live by the same law which they are charged with the duty of enforcing. So it's a very critical and important issue for the ordinary people of this country.
The fact which is being looked into right now, ma'am, is that whether this affidavit being made public is evidence enough. Because in this case, the girl is supposedly not coming ahead.
You know, is it or is it not evidence enough is a question that will be decided once the removal procedure begins. Let me tell you, if a removal procedure does begin, and that will mean that the Union Cabinet will have to advise the President to make a reference to the Supreme Court of India.
And we hear that's happening.
I'm very happy to note that it's likely to happen. Once that happens, there will be a full-fledged inquiry in the Supreme Court, at which the intern will get an opportunity to come and make her statement on oath before any person that the Supreme Court designates for this hearing. Justice Ganguly will get an opportunity to cross-examine her. He will get an opportunity to step into the witness box and state his point of view. And then we will have a decision on whether what she's saying is correct or not correct.
Justice Ganguly has said that, to NCW, that it doesn't deserve to give him a notice in this case, and he has asked for 4 weeks, actually. How would you look at that?
It is very disturbing that a former judge of the Supreme Court of India can downgrade the status of the NCW. Now remember, he himself is heading a commission which is very similar to the NCW, okay? NCW is at the national level, he's at the state level. And let me tell you, the very, very amusing part of this whole thing is that open today's newspapers, what you will find is he has taken suo motu cognizance of 3 complaints of sexual harassment made by schoolgirls. He should notice to the police, ask them to conduct an inquiry and present the report to him. Well, if he, sitting in a state commission, has the power, what makes him think that the NCW doesn't have the same power?
The bigger point, ma'am, exactly that you're making is that how particular this issue or this section, which everybody felt is above, it's a godly status, one would say, should not be touched in that sense. So you are kind of making a beginning in a way. I mean, it's unfortunate that this in turn is the case. How would you look at this uniqueness of touching a section which was not supposed to be touched is being
We've been taught this since childhood, that the judicial function is a divine function. Now, whether it is or not is for the people of this country to judge. But this is what we've been told, that they are very special people. They have been given this opportunity. It's like a trust. Given this opportunity to sit in judgment over ordinary mortals like you and me. And therefore, obviously, they have to be morally above us. That's what gives them the right. So, to answer your question, it's very important for us to recognize that in the last 1 year, since 16 December 2012, when Nirbhaya was raped, which are the 3 pillars of society which have been completely exposed for what they are?
Truly.
It's the media, through the Tarun Tejpal case, it's the judiciary, through Justice Ganguly's case, and of course the religious establishment through Acharam's case. I would like Nirbhaya's parents to take note of this. I would like to say that it's very easy for any system to convict, condemn to death people who raped Nirbhaya because they are the underclass of society.
Yes.
What is this 1 year telling us? That what happened to Nirbhaya, what this so-called underclass did, is also being done by the pillars of our society.
So, ma'am, in this case, we are seeing, as you're rightly saying, we are in a democracy and we are looking at this power center which uses, I mean, we are not talking about rape as such, but this whole act of, dominating somebody, subjugating somebody.
You're right. If judges have anything, they have power. And it has been said that they may not have the power of the purse because they don't have the money to distribute. But the power of the judicial system goes beyond the power of the purse because they have the power to sit in judgment over us. They have the power to condemn to death. They have the power to imprisonment. They have all kinds of power. Now, the interesting thing about the changes in the law that took place in March 2013 after the Nirbhaya incident, it recognized that people in positions of power can control and manipulate systems. Because it talked about rape which exists between a person in authority and a person who's under them, working under them. It talked about rape which occurs in custodial situations. It talked about rape in militarized zones. It talked about rapes in situations of communal violence and in hospitals and in shelter homes. So I think the critical word here is power. Now the difference is that, you may say, oh well, the judiciary doesn't have anybody in their power, but they do. And as I said, the power to sit in judgment over others is a more significant power than anything else.
An interesting analogy that you made, whether in media, whether in this religious segment case or whether in judiciary, these were sections that people were trying to kind of put it under the carpet even if anything was happening. So how would you look at this whole phenomena of either media taking cases up, highlighting it, people raising voices? We have seen men and women coming out on the street and protesting. How do you look at this 1 year that you're talking about, this whole shift in the way things have emerged?
It is what is rightly called the breaking of the silence. And I think there is a realization now that silence of the oppressed only helps the oppressor. You may say this is partly the legacy of Nirbhaya, that she, in dying, has enabled a lot of other women to speak up. This is when it comes to women. When it comes to the judiciary, I think it's been a slow process. It started way back in 1989, 1990, when I did in fact raise the issue of Justice Ramaswamy, who had used public money for private purposes, and we raised the issue of corruption in the judiciary. Since then, there has been a breaking of the silence in relation to the judiciary. Remember one thing, the judiciary has the power to convict for contempt, and this is what has kept people silent. But recently, I think it was in 2009, there have been amendments to the Contempt of Court Act which say truth is a defense. However, I don't think it's just the law which has made people speak out. I think we've reached a stage in our public life where ordinary people feel so oppressed.
They say enough is enough, isn't it?
Not just enough is enough, but I'd like to bring another issue here to the table for your consideration. And that is, we have in India today a dysfunctional legal system. The legal system just doesn't work. If you expect people to wait 20 years, 30 years to get an outcome, this is the time when people are saying we're not willing to accept this kind of system anymore. A system which makes...
Ma'am, being in that system, you're trying to kind of raise voice for them, for the fraternity. We'll keep talking about that. We are talking to Ms. Indira Jaising right now as you're watching The Quest. Don't go away. We are coming back after a very short break. You're watching The Quest right now. Welcome back to the show, and we are talking to Ms. Indira Jaising. But first of all, on Justice Ganguly's case, how hopeful are you that the kind of action that could have been taken is going in the right direction? Now, this Rajya Sabha MP from Trinamool has also spoken in the parliament. A lot of people have been making voices. You have made a very valid point. So how do you think currently the course of action is?
You know, I think there's a need to be very vigilant, and at this stage, we can't afford to relax and think that things are going in the right direction. I'm alarmed to read about the kind of support that Justice Ganguly has been getting.
Why do you think it's happening?
There is bonding, there is an unholy bonding between people who belong to the same class. There is an unholy bonding between, it's been called the brotherhood. And others have said that the judiciary is like a trade union which would like to protect one of its own. So it doesn't surprise me, frankly, but it disappoints me. And I would have at least expected people like the former Chief Justice to keep silent until such time as the law has taken its own course. And that is why, you did raise the question, many have raised the question, why did I put the affidavit in the public domain?
Yeah.
Let me say, the intern behaved very responsibly. She didn't even mention his name. She left it to the law to deal with him. As I said, the Supreme Court rose to the occasion and did what it had to do. I think her silence was being taken advantage of by Justice Ganguly by denying in the public domain that any such thing happened. And this became a situation of unequal power relations, where you had Justice Ganguly denying that he ever did anything despite a prima facie finding by 3 judges. You had a situation in which former Chief Justices and former Speakers of the Lok Sabha were coming out in support of Justice Ganguly, and here was this woman whose voice was not being heard. And it is only for this reason that I was compelled by my conscience to put the affidavit in the public domain, so that people of this country know what is her side of the story.
But you think the pressure has been built enough so that we're talking about this whole presidential reference, which we're hoping would be there soon?
Well, to begin with, let me say that, I hold no brief for any political party. Certainly not the Trinamool Congress. Allegations have been made that am I doing this on behalf of anybody else? I wish to make it very clear. I have spent more than 25 years in the Supreme Court of India. It is my workplace. I've been in the Supreme Court of India longer than any judge has been in the Supreme Court. The longest a judge has been in the Supreme Court is 7 years. Most are there for 5 years, 4 years, 3 years, 1 year. Some have been there for a shorter period as 10 days. And therefore, I have a vested interest in cleaning up the system. And I think what I did was an effort at cleaning up the system.
How would you look at all these women's issues coming up? In fact, coming to you only, Ms. Jaising, I remember taking up such cases as Trupan Deol Bajaj's case. At that time, it became such a big thing. Again, power, I would say. Somebody who was powerful was trying to kind of say and let it go like a very trivial issue. You took that up, and many other important cases of women, because you have your own journey to take up these cases very passionately, I would say, and come to this level where many of us look up to you.
Look, power is one part of the equation, but the other part of the equation is, of course, patriarchy, a very deep-rooted belief that women are just, playthings. And how can a judge even dare to tell a woman professional? This woman was a law intern, and she was there in her capacity as a professional. And how can they even dare to think that a professional woman who's entering the public domain, the public space, for the purpose of advancing her own career in legitimate, lawful ways, would welcome these kind of advances?
Some people sometimes say and make these kind of accusations or allegations on the other side that these are perpetrated and these are planned, and the women in question could have done it for a motive. I mean, these are the kind of strange things also that we hear, because as a woman I would contest that.
Well, I would not only contest it, but I think it's a very clever strategy to deflect attention from themselves. As you know, offense is the best defense. And so the best you can do, I would say it's pathetic that you attribute motives to the woman. Look, there is a law, there is a judge sitting there. let me assume for a moment that a woman has a motive to do what she's doing. There is a judge who's going to take the final call. And if she is manipulating a system, if she's manipulating somebody, if she's being untruthful, there is a judge sitting there to say that she's being untruthful, and there's a judge sitting there to dismiss the case. What I find absolutely amazing is that Justice Ganguly is not willing to face the law. If he really had nothing to hide, you know what he would do? The first thing he would do is walk in to the court and say, I'm here. I'm ready to clear my name honorably. He's running from the law. He's hiding from the law.
Do you think, and as we are all trying to also understand, is that at this stage, there is a certain pressure even on him in terms of many others feel that by submitting to this case, or by allowing himself to be questioned more and more, and by resigning, in fact, a new precedent would start, and that's what is the fear.
You're right. I think you've hit the nail on the head, because I can tell you, and it's been in the public domain as well. Justice Ganguly may not be the only one who's behaved in the manner that he's behaved, and there are other interns who've been approaching me, who've been talking about it, and who've been saying that they've had similar experiences. So I actually think, and I've said it before, that I think it's time to have a commission of inquiry into the question how women are treated.
Ma'am, what you just said is very, very significant. Are some of these others also coming up, and do you think there are more complaints which are right now under the carpet?
I think there are. I think there are others who are coming forward, stepping forward to complain. So to come back to the point that you raise, is there pressure? Is it a question of setting up a precedent? The answer is yes. The answer to that is yes. I think they are afraid that it will set a precedent, but in my opinion, it must set a rightful precedent. It will set a precedent, and it will be a rightful precedent, so that, as I said, there's no other word for it, but clean up the system. Give women the respect which they deserve. Treat them as professionals. Allow them to work in public spaces. That is what they are trying to prevent. And you're right in saying, I think they're trying to prevent it because they know that Justice Ganguly is not the only one.
Ma'am, talking again about women in general, and how would you look at this whole phenomena of either media taking up more cases, highlighting it, or this whole scene changing, mindsets changing, if at all? How would you look at this shifting of mindsets, either if it's there or not there, or women's issues actually coming up and being addressed? Would you see a pattern, or would you not see a pattern? How would you look at the situation?
I see a pattern. I see a very positive pattern. And I see a change taking place in Indian society. And one is, of course, we've already talked about it, that is speaking up. But speaking up is only the beginning. And from speaking up, we get to the stage of cleaning up. And, what form this cleaning up is going to take is something that the people of this country will have to decide. But I would like to tell you that the people of the country are fed up of a dysfunctional legal system. They are fed up of a criminal justice system which does not deliver justice. They are fed up of a civil justice system which is far, far too expensive for them. Now, we do have a legal aid system in this country, but people are also tired of the fact that the legal aid system does not deliver.
And we all wish that it should, and and we are all hoping again and again, and we'll wait for a lifetime to actually see to it that it gets the light of the day. We are talking to Miss Indira Jaising right now in The Quest. Don't go away, we're coming back shortly once again. You're watching The Quest, and we are talking to Miss Indira Jaising. Your own journey, ma'am. I mean, one of the few judges who really reached the top. Today, we are talking to the additional Solicitor General of India here. How the journey has been? I mean, talk about the kind of struggle maybe you could have faced, or this whole thing that we are talking about today regarding women. But women in power, I think, is not an easy journey.
It's not an easy journey, and it's not easy even today. I find that to this day, I mean, given my gray hair, given that I'm older than most judges of the Supreme Court of India, you would have thought that I would have earned my respect. But I would say that even today, I think judges consider a woman's word half that of a man. Yeah, I think so. And I find that, when a woman gets up and makes a legal argument, she's taken half as seriously as a man would be taken. I also find this attitude, by and large, amongst my peer group, and that is male professionals at the bar. Undoubtedly, there are men within the legal profession who do treat you as equal. I'm not saying that every single person I've met is
Like
of
that.
the same kind. I'm talking about dominant trends. And most importantly, I'm talking about judges. I can tell you that I have seen...
The recent thing we heard, ma'am, that many of them feel that now no longer female interns should be there. I mean, how would you look at these things coming
That,
up?
I think, is a very, very serious backlash. It's like the more you succeed, the more you're going to be pushed back. And to suggest that there should be no more women interns is ridiculous, to say the least. And I hope that the Supreme Court of India and our high courts don't succumb to this. I can understand.
Because we keep hearing these statements coming either from a politician or somewhere that, now that you have a woman working with you very closely, either as secretaries or your private aid or whatever,
Yes.
then it's a danger.
Look, I think it reflects an attitude where these people think that they had a right to access women sexually in the workplace. And it's that right which is being questioned, which is why you heard this when the bill was being debated in Parliament. There were prominent members of Parliament who got up and said, oh, after all, we've been doing this all our lives. I mean, we've been whistling at women, we've been molesting women all our lives. And suddenly now you're telling us that under the law you can't do it. That is it. That is the attitude which leads to this, that we will not have
And how
women.
hopeful are you that legislations which are coming up in terms of regarding women or for women are sufficient enough? I mean, do you find that scene satisfying?
Unfortunately, my experience has been that law by itself is not enough. And as I told you, when you're dealing with a dysfunctional legal system, you need to use other ways, other methods. And that way and that other method is building public awareness. I'm happy that you've given me an opportunity to say what I want to say. I think more and more people should listen to voices like this. We've not had the opportunity to put
But are
our
we
voice.
also breaking the mystery here, ma'am, in this case? Because there is this section which is supposed to be quiet, doing its work silently, and suddenly we are kind of questioning things which were undercover. A certain, as we talked about, this holiness thing.
I think the answer to your question is that it's the younger generation which is doing that. This intern is 23, the other journalist, 24, 25, and I think the future lies with that generation. Maybe women of my generation, by and large, did not speak up, but these people in positions of power need to understand that India is changing. India belongs to the young.
So your fight will also go on, ma'am. We'll see you fighting cases and raising your voice against something which is not correct.
Most certainly. As I told you, I've spent the better part of my life as a lawyer. And if there is one thing that I would like to conclude my career with, it would be with a feeling that in some small measure, I contributed to the cleaning up of the system and making it more people-friendly.
Thank you so much for that you're doing it for the society, ma'am. It was a pleasure talking to you, and all the very best for whatever you do in future. And that was Miss Indira Jaising we were in conversation with. Hope you liked this edition of The Quest. Thank you for watching. Namaskar and bye-bye.